This program is brought to you by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Well, hello and welcome to the maiden edition of Africa's Next Generation. Now, this series put together by EcoBank will over the next 6 months put the spotlight on the growth and transformation of small and medium enterprises and fintechs in Africa. I'm Esther Awoni. Welcome. On today's show, we'll be looking at how digital inclusion can help drive support and empowerment for women-led SMEs. Now, with me in the studio to unpack this topic are Carol Oyedeji. She's the Deputy Managing Director and Commercial Banking Head at EcoBank Nigeria, and Dr. Elizabeth Ajibola, Managing Director, CEO of Mount Olive. For joining us also virtually is Mary Tembo, the Managing Director of Tema General Supplies Limited in Zambia. Thank you so much, ladies. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Well, quite a lot for us to talk about women-owned businesses, the importance of inclusion, of course, digital tools to help, especially in the area of scaling. Carol, I'd like to start with you.
All right.
Now, how can the gaps in digital skills and literacy be bridged in order to ensure more women are included within the digital world? I think that's quite important.
Yes, it is important, and there are several ways in which the gaps can be bridged. I would advocate first for specialized technical training, not so technical, but trainings that cover such areas as basic Microsoft tools, Word, Excel, training on internet use, social media exposure. And I say that because these sorts of training actually help build the foundational digital skills for female entrepreneurs, and goes a long way in helping them to just improve engagement, interaction, and generally run their businesses better. So definitely that is one way of trying to bridge the gap, but there are several other ways. And another could potentially be through facilitating access to phone ownership, because phones are what you call basic technological tools, and will typically help the female entrepreneurs in terms of access to financial services. And many, groups or bodies can actually assist in terms of bridging that gap. They could facilitate some of the training, or, provide the phones themselves, be it government, corporate institutions, even educational institutions, any groups that are quite focused on, enhancing the cause of women can support as best as possible. We have a proposition in EcoBank called Elevate for Women. And Elevate focuses on both financial and non-financial benefits for women. And under non-financial benefits, it's heavily focused on capacity development. So we do provide training programs that help enhance digital skills for female entrepreneurs, and definitely, pushes them towards driving efficiency as best as possible in their businesses.
Well, thank you so much for that response. Quite a lot to unpack there, but let me quickly bring you in, Dr. Ajibola. You run a large operation, but I'd like you to just help us understand what your business is all about. Let's start there.
Okay, so I am into food business. So when I say food business, this cuts across processed food from manufacturers and also local food from the farm.
Okay.
And of course, we have customers quite, in number of places across Nigeria, and we have also a software that we use in running the business that helps us to capture, our customer data and make provision, for whatever their needs are.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Well, tell us about, what are some of those barriers that you had to overcome as a woman when starting your business? And it's not just Mount Olive that you have other businesses.
Yes.
That's why I said, when I started by saying you run quite the operation.
Right.
Tell us about those barriers and how you were able to overcome them.
Yeah, well, truth be told, it wasn't easy initially. So the parent company is Mount Olive, but we have other subsidiaries. We have Betty Distribution, we have Ever Agro Foods, and also My24 coming up. When we started, the digital way of doing the business, customers it took them a while before they accept the use of electronic platforms. I remember times where customers will say, no, we need the hard copy receipts and not electronic receipts. And some customer would say, oh, it takes a long time before we go through this process. Why not go back to the old way of giving us the hard copy receipts and let's get the transaction done? But, we had to educate them and tell them the advantage that is in it, doing it the electronic way. And, gradually they accepted it, and it's a lot better now than it used to be.
I'm glad to hear that. We all know that change can be quite difficult sometimes, but then when it involves moving forward, being innovative, obviously it's very important. Let's quickly bring in Mary here. Mary, let's also start with you by telling us also what you do. Tell us what your business is about.
My business is offering the service of aggregation. That is our main business that we are doing. Every season, we have to buy things from the farmers and sell them to the off-takers, who some of them are multinationals and some open markets. And also, we are fortunate enough to be getting contracts from the World Food Program that supports humanitarians. Yeah. Then we also have side-by-side businesses that we do, which is supplying inputs to the farmers. And also, from what we aggregate, we are also doing the processing of certain products, which is peanut butter, cooking oil. That's what we do. And we also repackage the same aggregation of legumes and grains into smaller packs for us to sell to other clients who would want to buy in the smaller packs.
Right. Now, women in Africa have more barriers when deciding to open a business. What were the biggest barriers for you and how you had to overcome to start your business?
The culture and norm is one of them. Lack of finance and literacy finance. No proper planning of the business strategy, what I wanted to undertake. It was a bit of a challenge. And basically mentorship. There was no one to mentor me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Carol, let me come back to you.
Yeah.
Like you heard Dr. Jibala talk about some of the barriers, but I'd like to talk about some specific barriers. Perhaps you also touched on some. That's for women that are overcoming such barriers, such as labor force laws, for instance, pay gaps, loan and funding restrictions, and even social norms.
I believe that some of these entry barriers are sort of reinforced by established laws, practices, value systems that cut across culture, religion, even educational. And the first step to actually removing such barriers, right, would be for the administrators of such institutions to actually consciously enact laws that serve to remove women that are sort of trapped in this sort of systems. But not only that, but ensure that maybe younger females are not meeting such obstacles subsequently. Even in the basic family unit, the perspective on the girl-child education has to change. Government in itself, right, has a role to play. Government can, create, access to, high quality, reasonably priced education for women, and even offer, skills opportunities for them. And then, if you look at corporates in themselves can ensure that they create policies that encourage their female staff to be more creative and, compensate fairly, just to ensure that they are almost on equal footing with the men. Then if you look at financial institutions, it's a well-established fact that the female gender have lower default rates when it comes to lending in the...
Well, that is true. That has improved.
They do have lower default rates. So financial institutions should actually strive to come up with special, intervention schemes or lending schemes that facilitate easier access to finance for women. We do have that in Elevate for Women in the EcoBank, family, and we try as much as possible to ensure that women have easy access to financing, but also as much as possible we support them with training that would ensure that some of those psychological, leanings towards, barriers well dealt with.
Absolutely, you make some very strong points there. Dr. Jibola, let's talk about the role of e-commerce and social media. We've seen how social media has helped entrepreneurs, particularly women in general. But how can, in your own experience, how can social media and e-commerce platforms support and help grow small SMEs, especially women-owned businesses, young women who are out there now, don't particularly want to be part of the labor market, but they want to start their own? Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, you're watching the maiden edition of Africa's Next Generation, where we put a spotlight on the growth and transformation of SMEs in Africa. But let's get back to our discussion. With me in the studio are Carol Oyedeji, Deputy Managing Director and Commercial Banking Head at EcoBank Nigeria, and Dr. Elizabeth Ajibola, MD CEO of Mount Olive. While joining us virtually, of course, is Mary Tembo, Managing Director, Temba General Supplies Limited in Zambia. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time so far. Carol, let me start with you. Let me continue with you. Now, what can women-owned small businesses now do in order to attract and recruit digitally inclined talent to grow their business? And how can they also stand out from more established male-owned businesses?
I think female entrepreneurs can actually create a good working and learning environment for digitally talented individuals. One in which they feel they're compensated and paid fairly. Create an environment that sort of builds loyalty. I say that because a lot of these digitally talented individuals actually belong to the Gen Z generation, and so we sometimes
say that.
sometimes struggle to engage them because they're often very distracted. But if, however, they are in an environment where they feel welcomed, where they feel that they can build a career, they can actually support as best as possible to grow the organizations for the female entrepreneurs. In helping them grow, the female entrepreneurs can then compete effectively with their male counterparts in whatever they do. So having good engaging tools to support that crop of staff will definitely help female entrepreneurs in their business.
You're absolutely right. Now, Dr. Ajibola, let me ask you that. Now, should government offer subsidies to women-owned businesses and that are innovating digitally in their business practices? I believe Carol mentioned something earlier.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. You know, such subsidy would serve as a motivation, you know, for women in SME to embrace digitalization. Now, we know how expensive it is, you know, when it comes to the devices needed and also, you know, data, like she said earlier. However, if governments can, you know, have a kind of subsidy, probably in terms of tax reduction or something.
I was going to ask you what that would look like.
Yeah,
in practical terms.
Like tax reduction, you know, this would serve as kind of motivation that would help women in business.
Interesting. Mary, let me bring you in here. Let's go back to the numbers. How does partnering with the bank and the private sector help you to close the digital gap in terms of adapting technology and accessing financial support also?
Yeah, it's private. We need to partner with the banks. They have a lot of products which are running right now. And if you have seen, there's a lot of security issues in moving with money. If I need to do my transactions, I can't be moving with a lot of money like if I want to come to South Africa. So we need to go digital, and we need to partner with the banks because they are the ones who are offering all these services. They are the ones who are keeping our money so that they are in the self-custody. Two, they have got express accounts which are easily viable or easily accessible for one to use even at their homes, even in their offices. As I am seated in my office right now, I'm able to transact using my phone to pay anyone. So all those products are very good for us because even I want to grow my business, there's nowhere else I would run to because the banks have even got a better rate for them, for me to run my business. So every private partners, even NGOs, even women, their wish is to partner with the banks because of the way they even keep us, even the way they are going to mentor you is quite different, because they will show you the way or every product, they'll show you the pros and cons of every service that they are going to offer before you even get your money from them. Even when I want to get a loan, the bank is better for me to use. Any transactions, the bank is better because I'm in the safe hand of the bank. And even right now, I was one of the women who was training from the Elevate program, which taught us a lot about how to run our businesses, how to handle our customers, how to collaborate in our businesses. So without the banks, it's not everything that we can get from our schools, but the banks have also taken up that mantle to say they need to train us for us to access their finances or their products, which I feel very good.
Carol, let me bring you in here now. Let's talk about something different. In what ways would or could women-owned businesses be more included in the decisions of policymakers? I've been itching to get to this particular part because we know the importance of policy in setting that stage for
absolutely,
growth.
Absolutely. And decisions by policymakers need to be targeted at addressing underrepresentation for women across all sectors of society. I would advocate first for a quota system.
Oh.
Yes, I think that would help in terms of how women, can actually gain extra space and actually move up the ladder in terms of representation. So I would advocate for a quota system. Also, any initiatives that are actually targeted at ensuring equal access to resources, training, business networks, financial inclusion, those will definitely help. And any, policies that can support good work-life balance for women, will definitely help. But then women also and pressure groups can actually work together to influence policy decision makers to ensure that as much as possible, women themselves get to be more represented across, all the strata of society and can have a voice in whatever needs to be done.
Absolutely. Walking the talk.
All right.
Dr. Ajibola, let me bring you in here. Let's talk about the educational institutions now. How can educational institutions encourage and train women and guide them into digital entrepreneurships?
So educational institution needs to be intentional about this and include it in their curriculum, because we are in digital world now. So this has to form part of the teaching, the training as the girls are in school, even before they finish. If it is included in the curriculum, the awareness will be there and they will be prepared to leverage on all of this in business.
And on that note, we've come to the end of today's conversation. Great way to end that. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Many thanks to Carol Oyedeji, Deputy Managing Director and Commercial Banking Head at EcoBank Nigeria, Dr. Elizabeth Ajibola, Managing Director and CEO of Mount Olive, and Mary Tembo from Tema General Supplies Limited, Zambia, for making an engaging discussion with us today. Until next time, I'm Esther Awuni. Thank you for watching and bye for now.